SKOL Vikings, let's win this game.
Vikings fans, buckle up because the last few hours have felt like a storm rolling through the roster. We're hearing chatter about a trade that could rattle the foundation of this team, whispers of a signing aimed at plugging a serious hole, and now an NFL analyst comes out swinging saying Kyler Murray is way better than J.J. McCarthy. That comment? Yeah, it's already lighting sparks behind the curtain in Minnesota, and you already know that kind of thing doesn't stay quiet for long. And just wait. By the time we wrap this up, there's also a warning floating around about a wide receiver prospect the Vikings might want to steer clear of in the draft. That piece alone could redraw the blueprint of this offense, and that's the part you really can't ignore. Let's dive right in. First thing on the table, there's a move brewing that didn't jump off the page at first glance, but once you connect the dots, it hits like a linebacker filling the gap. The Vikings are zeroing in on help for the interior defensive line, and after the recent exits, this isn't optional. It's survival mode. Let's not sugarcoat it. They lost two guys who were eating up snaps like clockwork, and that kind of production doesn't magically grow back overnight. That's exactly how teams get caught slipping before the season even settles in. Betting everything on youth here is like building a house on sand early in the season. It collapses fast. Sure, there's a breakout player who earned more reps, no doubt. But dumping a full workload on him right now, that's playing with fire. And if it goes sideways, everybody notices. And now you've got a name from inside the division picking up steam, and that should make your ears perk up immediately. We're talking about that lunch pail type. No headlines, no flash, just steady hands doing the heavy lifting. The kind of guy who clogs lanes, disrupts timing, and makes life miserable in the trenches. Coaches love those guys even if fantasy players ignore them. And when games are decided in tight spaces, that matters more than highlight reels. The name buzzing right now is DJ Reader. And honestly, that fits like a glove for what this team needs. Not a star, not a spectacle, just reliability. After last season, that's gold. Yeah, the age might make some folks pause, and I get it. But experience carries weight too, especially for a defense trying to find its footing again. And here's something people overlook: balance. You can't go all in on youth at physically demanding spots. That shows up late in games when bodies start to wear down, and that's usually when drives get extended. A veteran who handles the grind on early downs, absorbs blocks, and opens lanes for others. That shifts the whole machine. If you've been watching closely, you know it's not just about stats, it's about fit and need. So let me throw it to you. Do you bring in a guy like this or trust the young core? Let me hear you in the comments, because if they pull the trigger here, it could set the tone for this defense from day one. And that rolls us right into what's happening on offense, where the next decision feels a lot less simple than it looks. Now keep your eyes on this, because what started as a quiet ripple could turn into a wave before we know it. There's a name gaining traction on offense that wasn't even on most radars not long ago. And now suddenly he's popping up in discussions, visits, evaluations, you name it. That kind of climb usually means something's cooking behind the scenes, and it usually means the team sees more than the public does. And this isn't smoke for no reason. The profile checks out. Big frame, moves well for his size, and plays like a true boundary receiver, the type who stretches coverage and wins those physical battles downfield. That kind of presence reshapes how defenses line up, and it can open things up for everybody else. What makes it even more intriguing is where he came from. No powerhouse program, no bright lights, and still he produced, even when his team was outmatched. That tells you he doesn't need perfect conditions to shine. But here's where the conversation tightens up. The competition level. That question always creeps in. Yeah, but who is he playing? Fair point. But when you watch him glide, separate, and attack space, it's hard to brush off. And that's where teams start rolling the dice, because traits like that can pull you in fast. The name the Vikings are digging into is Ted Hurst, and I'll be straight with you. This is one of those prospects who either explodes into something special or fades out completely. There's no comfortable middle lane. That's what makes this call tricky, because at the top of the depth chart, the Vikings are solid, no argument. But after that, things thin out over a long season. They need someone who can step in and carry weight, not just flash in moments. And a player like this starts to make sense. But here's the twist. This draft is stacked with receivers, deep. And a lot of them are safer bets, more polished, more battle-tested. So what do you value? Upside or security? That choice can echo for years. Some analysts are even saying if he played at a big-name school, he'd be locked into the first round. That shifts perception instantly. But we've seen this story before. Athletic marvels who never quite click in the league. The risk is real, and that's what makes the timing important. Still, when a team brings someone in for a visit, it's not just window shopping. There's intent there, a plan forming, and depending on how the board falls, his stock could shoot up fast. Then it becomes that classic fork in the road. Grab him early or watch him slip away. Those are the moments that define drafts. Stick with me, because this offensive talk leads straight into a conversation that hits the most critical spot on the field, and that's where this thing really heats up. But before we push ahead real quick, tap that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you a thing, and it keeps you locked into everything happening with this team as it unfolds. If you want to stay on top of all of it without missing a beat, this is the place. Let's keep this ride going together. All right, now this next one. This is the kind of take that sets off debates like fireworks on a summer night. The kind that splits opinions in bars, group chats, everywhere. And once it gets loose, everybody's got something to say. A national analyst dropped a statement that cuts right into the heart of this team's confidence at quarterback. No hedging, no soft landing, just flat out saying a veteran QB is clearly ahead of the young guy on this roster. Not even close, according to him. And yeah, that stings. Because one comment like that can shift the entire narrative around the quarterback room, especially when people are already watching this situation under a microscope. It's one thing for us to talk internally about growth and patience. It's another when someone from the outside looks in and says the gap is massive. That changes how the league sees you. It shifts expectations. It rewrites the conversation. And I'll be honest, I get part of the argument. Kyler Murray has done it at this level. He's produced, carried offenses, delivered even when things weren't stable. That's real credibility. But on the flip side, this team invested in a young quarterback, built a vision around him, and that guy is J.J. McCarthy. You can't just pretend that didn't happen. So now it comes down to timing. This roster, it looks ready to compete sooner rather than later. There's talent across the board. The defense showed flashes of real bite. So how long do you wait? How patient can you afford to be? Because when the window cracks open, pressure floods in fast. Decisions speed up, and that's where franchises tell you what they really believe. And here's another layer. Fit. This offense has an identity. Under center, heavy play action, structured reads. That's not what Kyler Murray has lived in. So it's not plug and play. That's where things get complicated. But there is a silver lining. The coaching staff has shown they can adjust. They've molded systems before. That gives you options. At the end of the day, this isn't just about who's better right now. It's about what direction this team wants to take immediately and how quickly they want to get there. And this is the kind of insight you only hear from people who live and breathe Vikings football. So I'm asking you, do you ride with experience or stick with the future? Drop your take, because this decision touches everything, and it rolls right into the next situation. One that could shake up the defense in a big way, maybe faster than people think. Now we step into territory that feels a little uneasy, because this involves trade talk around a player who's become a real cog in this defensive machine. And when rumors like this start swirling right before the draft, that's usually not random noise. It's a signal. Something's being discussed behind closed doors, and that's when you really start paying attention. Here's the reality. Teams around the league are watching closely and could come knocking. And not with lowball offers, we're talking legit draft capital. Picks that can help shape the roster down the road. Picks that give you flexibility and depth moving forward. But here's the tug of war. Do you deal a productive player now to stack future assets? Or do you keep him and hold the defensive line steady? That's not an easy call, because getting after the quarterback isn't optional. It's oxygen. And this guy brings that. Even when the sack totals aren't eye-popping, his impact is there. He disrupts rhythm, caves in pockets, forces bad decisions. That kind of influence doesn't always show up in the box score, but opponents feel it snap after snap. And truthfully, players like this don't grow on trees. You can't just draft a replacement and expect instant results. There's a learning curve, physical adjustment, experience needed. But zoom out for a second. The contract matters, the timeline matters, and there are younger players knocking on the door for more snaps. That changes everything. If the staff believes someone is ready to step up, then suddenly the trade conversation makes more sense, especially if the return is strong. And the name at the center of all this? Jonathan Greenard. But here's the deciding factor. Value. If the offer isn't right, you walk away. No hesitation. Moving a pass rusher like that for less weakens you now and guarantees nothing later. And from what's being said, they're not settling. They want a haul that actually justifies it. And honestly, that's the right mindset. If you're going to move him, it better be for something meaningful. Otherwise, keep him and keep the defense sharp. Also keep this in mind. Multiple teams are monitoring this. This could turn into a bidding war. And when that happens, things escalate fast. So yeah, there's tension here. It could break at any second or fade out completely. But one thing's certain, this decision could reshape the defense overnight. And that brings us to a story that hits way deeper than X's and O's, and maybe harder than anything else in this script. Now we shift gears completely, because this one hits the heart, not the playbook. This isn't about schemes or contracts, it's about legacy. And when it involves someone who carved out a piece of Vikings history, you feel it in your chest. Adam Thielen, former Vikings wide receiver, has decided to retire. And yeah, every career eventually reaches that point, but what stood out was how he explained it. That's what makes it hit differently, and honestly, that's where the story lingers. It wasn't about losing ability. It wasn't about injury forcing his hand. It was about how he was viewed. He made it clear there came a moment when he realized the organization didn't see him the same way anymore. Even though he believed he still had gas left, even though he felt ready, the perception shifted, and that cuts deep. Because anyone who lives and breathes Vikings football knows what Adam Thielen means to this franchise. It's bigger than numbers. It's about identity, connection, what he represented in that purple and gold. And hearing that, it's uncomfortable. It reminds you how cold this league can be. One minute you're a cornerstone, the next you're being eased out quietly. And the crazy part? He said the metrics showed he still had speed, still had the physical tools, still could compete. But once the narrative changes, it's like trying to turn a river. You're fighting the current. And that's the reality for so many players. This isn't just about Thielen. It's about time in the NFL. It's about how quickly things shift. And while it makes you appreciate his journey, it also forces questions about the present. How are veterans being handled right now? How is the roster evolving? How are transitions managed? Because those behind-the-scenes decisions shape the locker room. They linger. And I'm telling you, this kind of story doesn't show up in stats, but it echoes louder than most realize. And maybe that's the thread connecting everything we've talked about. Moves, risks, future planning, and the emotional cost that comes with it. Let that sink in, because it paints a bigger picture of where this team stands, and it says a lot about where this franchise is headed. And after all that, here's what sticks. This team is standing at a fork in the road. This isn't just about adding a player or making a deal. It's about defining who they are right now, which direction they're choosing, and that choice is unfolding in real time. You've got potential arrivals, possible exits, big debates about leadership on the field. And at the same time, stories that remind you how unforgiving this game can be to those who built it. It's all tied together. Every move, every decision, shaping what comes next. That's why every one of these discussions matters a little more than it seems on the surface. Because in the end, this isn't just about football, it's about vision, it's about identity. So let me ask you straight up, where do you think the Vikings are headed right now? Stay tuned. SKOL Vikings, let's go!